The sun was setting over the rugged hills, casting long shadows across the dusty terrain. A wild Mustang, its coat glistening with sweat, galloped across the open plains. Its breath came in short, panicked bursts as it darted between rocks and shrubs, its hooves pounding against the earth. Behind it, the distant sound of engines roared. Hunters, relentless and determined, were closing in. The Mustang's eyes darted wildly, searching for an escape, but the landscape offered no refuge. It was alone, vulnerable, and running out of time. Meanwhile, miles away, a teenager sat by a window, staring out at the same sunset. Alex was 16, with sharp green eyes and a mop of unruly brown hair. Their wheelchair was positioned perfectly to catch the fading light, but their gaze was distant, lost in thought. It had been 2 years since the accident. 2 years since their life had changed forever. The car crash had left them paralyzed from the waist down, and though the physical wounds had healed, the emotional scars ran deep. Alex missed the feeling of freedom, the wind in their hair, the thrill of movement. Most of all, they missed riding horses. Before the accident, Alex had spent every weekend at the local stable, bonding with the horses, feeling alive in a way they hadn't since. Now, those memories felt like a cruel reminder of everything they'd lost. The sound of footsteps pulled Alex from their thoughts. "Hey, kiddo," came a gentle voice. It was Alex's mom, her face lined with worry, but her smile warm. "We're heading out to the ranch tomorrow, remember? It'll be good for you to get some fresh air." Alex nodded half-heartedly, not wanting to disappoint her. The ranch was a family-owned property a few hours away, a place they used to visit often before the accident. Alex hadn't been back since, and the idea of returning filled them with a mix of dread and curiosity. The next morning, the family piled into the car and set off. The drive was quiet, the hum of the engine the only sound. Alex stared out the window, watching the landscape shift from suburban streets to open countryside. By the time they arrived at the ranch, the sun was high in the sky, casting a golden glow over the rolling hills. Alex's dad helped them out of the car and into their wheelchair, and together they made their way to the main house. The air was crisp and clean, filled with the scent of hay and wildflowers. For the first time in months, Alex felt a flicker of something. Hope, maybe, or just the faintest hint of peace. That afternoon, Alex decided to explore the ranch on their own. They wheeled themselves down a dirt path, the wheels crunching against the gravel. The path led to a small clearing, surrounded by tall trees and dotted with wildflowers. It was quiet, serene, and for a moment, Alex felt a sense of calm they hadn't known in years. But then, a sound broke the silence, a soft, pained whinny. Alex froze, their heart pounding. The sound came again, louder this time, and Alex followed it, their hands gripping the wheels of their chair. They rounded a bend and there, standing in the middle of the clearing, was the Mustang. Its coat was a deep chestnut, streaked with dirt and sweat, and its sides heaved with exhaustion. One of its legs was injured, the fur matted with blood, and its eyes were wide with fear. For a moment, neither moved. The Mustang stared at Alex, its ears twitching, and Alex stared back, their breath caught in their throat. There was something in the Mustang's eyes, something wild and untamed, but also something deeply vulnerable. It was a look Alex recognized, a reflection of their own pain and longing. Slowly, carefully, Alex began to move closer. They spoke softly, their voice barely above a whisper. "Hey there," they said. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The Mustang tensed, its muscles coiled, ready to bolt. But as Alex inched closer, something shifted. The Mustang's breathing slowed, and its eyes softened. It didn't move as Alex reached out a hand, their fingers trembling. And then something incredible happened. The Mustang leaned forward, just slightly, and nuzzled Alex's hand. Tears welled in Alex's eyes as they felt the warmth of the Mustang's breath against their skin. It was a small gesture, but it meant everything. For the first time in years, Alex felt a connection, a bond that went beyond words. They stayed like that for what felt like hours, the Mustang's head resting gently in their lap as they stroked its mane. The sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the clearing in shades of orange and pink, and for a moment, The world felt perfect. But the peace didn't last. As the sky darkened, the sound of engines echoed in the distance. The Mustang's head shot up, its ears pricked, and its body tensed. Alex's heart sank as they realized what was coming. The hunters. They had found the Mustang. Without thinking, Alex positioned themselves between the Mustang and the approaching noise. "You're not taking him," they whispered, their voice steady despite the fear coursing through them. The Mustang stood behind them, its breath hot against their back, and together they waited. The hunters arrived moments later, their trucks skidding to a halt at the edge of the clearing. 3 men stepped out, their faces hard and determined. One of them, a tall man with a rifle slung over his shoulder, stepped forward. "Step aside, kid," he said, his voice cold. "That Mustang's ours." Alex shook their head, their hands gripping the wheels of their chair. "No," they said firmly. "He's not yours. He's free. He belongs to no one." The man laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "You think you can stop us?" he sneered. "You're just a kid in a wheelchair. What are you going to do?" Alex's jaw tightened, and they straightened their back, meeting the man's gaze head-on. "I'm not afraid of you," they said, their voice strong and clear. "And neither is he." For a moment, the man hesitated, his eyes flickering between Alex and the Mustang. Then, with a muttered curse, he raised his rifle. But before he could take aim, the Mustang let out a fierce, defiant whinny and charged forward, its injured leg forgotten. The men scrambled back, their bravado crumbling in the face of the Mustang's raw power. Alex watched in awe as the Mustang reared up, its hooves striking the air, and the hunters retreated to their trucks, cursing and shouting. As the sound of the engines faded into the distance, the Mustang turned back to Alex, its chest heaving, but its eyes calm. Alex reached out, their hand trembling, and the Mustang nuzzled it once more. "You're safe now," Alex whispered, their voice breaking. "You're free." But as they sat there in the clearing, the weight of what had just happened settled over them. The hunters would be back, they both knew it, and Alex couldn't protect the Mustang forever. The next morning, Alex woke with a sense of determination. They couldn't let the Mustang face this danger alone. They wheeled themselves to the ranch's stable, where their dad was already at work. "Dad," they said, their voice firm, "I need your help." Their dad looked up, surprised but willing to listen. And as Alex explained their plan, a spark of hope ignited in their chest. Together, they would find a way to protect the Mustang, to give it the freedom it deserved. But as the days passed, the challenges grew. The Mustang's injury worsened, and Alex's determination was tested at every turn. They spent hours researching, consulting with veterinarians, and even learning to adapt their wheelchair to navigate the rough terrain of the ranch. It was exhausting, but every time they looked into the Mustang's eyes, they knew it was worth it. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Alex sat by the Mustang's side, their hand resting on its neck. "We're in this together," they whispered. "No matter what happens, we'll face it together." The Mustang let out a soft whinny, its breath warm against Alex's skin, and for a moment, the world felt right. But deep down, Alex knew the hardest part was yet to come. The days turned into weeks, and the bond between Alex and the Mustang grew stronger with each passing moment. The Mustang, whom Alex had started calling Spirit for its untamed and resilient nature, began to heal under their care. Alex spent every waking hour at the ranch, learning everything they could about horse care and rehabilitation. They worked tirelessly, often staying up late into the night to ensure Spirit's wounds were cleaned and dressed properly. Their parents, though initially hesitant, couldn't help but be moved by their child's determination. Slowly, they began to support Alex's efforts, helping them build a makeshift shelter for Spirit and even reaching out to local veterinarians for advice. But Spirit's recovery wasn't the only challenge they faced. The hunters, though temporarily driven off, hadn't given up. Rumors began to circulate in the nearby town about the wild Mustang with a price on its head. Some said it was a prize stallion, worth a fortune to the right buyer. Others claimed it was a danger to livestock and needed to be captured or put down. Alex knew it was only a matter of time before the hunters returned, and this time they'd be more prepared. One evening, as Alex sat by Spirit's side, they noticed something unusual. The Mustang's ears twitched and its head shot up, its nostrils flaring as it sniffed the air. Alex followed its gaze and saw a figure standing at the edge of the clearing. It was a woman, tall and lean, with a weathered face and piercing blue eyes. She wore a cowboy hat and carried a coiled rope in one hand. Alex's heart raced as they wheeled themselves forward, positioning themselves between Spirit and the stranger. "Who are you?" Alex demanded, their voice steady despite the fear gnawing at their chest. The woman raised her hands in a gesture of peace. "Easy there," she said, her voice calm but firm. "I'm not here to hurt him. My name's Maggie. I'm a horse trainer, and I heard about your Mustang." Alex narrowed their eyes, suspicion etched across their face. "How do you know about Spirit?" Maggie took a step closer, her movements slow and deliberate. "Word gets around," she said, "especially when a wild Mustang bonds with a kid in a wheelchair. It's not something you see every day." Alex hesitated, unsure whether to trust her. But something in Maggie's eyes, a kindness, a sincerity, made them lower their guard just a little. "What do you want?" they asked. Maggie smiled, a small, knowing smile. "I want to help," she said. "That Mustang's got spirit, no pun intended. But he's not going to survive out here on his own. Not with those hunters after him. And not with that leg of his." Alex glanced back at Spirit, who was watching Maggie with wary eyes. They knew she was right. Spirit's injury was healing, but it was slow, and the Mustang was still vulnerable. They couldn't protect him forever, not without help. "What do you suggest?" Alex asked, their voice softer now. Maggie stepped closer, her eyes never leaving Spirit. "I can help you train him," she said. "Teach him to trust humans, to let us help him. But it's not going to be easy. It's going to take time, patience, and a whole lot of heart." Alex looked at Spirit, their hearts swelling with love and determination. "I'll do whatever it takes," they said. "He's not just a Mustang. He's my friend." Maggie nodded, a look of respect in her eyes. "Then let's get to work." Over the next few weeks, Maggie became a regular presence at the ranch. She taught Alex everything she knew about horses, how to read their body language, how to earn their trust, and how to communicate without words. It was slow, painstaking work, but Alex was a quick learner. They spent hours with Spirit, sitting quietly by his side, speaking softly, and offering him food and water. Slowly, Spirit began to relax, his wary eyes softening as he grew accustomed to Alex's presence. But the hunters were never far from their minds. One evening, as Alex and Maggie worked with Spirit, they heard the distant rumble of engines. Alex's heart sank as they realized what it meant. The hunters were back. "We need to get him out of here," Maggie said, her voice urgent. "They're not going to stop until they have him." Alex nodded, their mind racing. They couldn't let Spirit fall into the hunters' hands. But where could they go? The ranch was surrounded by open land, and Spirit was still too injured to run far. "There's an old barn on the other side of the property," Alex said, their voice steady despite the fear coursing through them. "It's hidden, surrounded by trees. They might not find us there." Maggie nodded. "Let's move." Together, they led Spirit through the dense woods, the Mustang's hooves crunching against the fallen leaves. The sound of engines grew louder, and Alex's heart pounded in their chest. They could hear voices, now, shouting, and the occasional crack of a gunshot. Spirit's ears twitched and his body tensed, but he stayed close to Alex, his trust in them unwavering. When they reached the barn, Alex quickly wheeled themselves inside, pulling the doors shut behind them. The interior was dark and dusty, filled with the scent of old hay and wood. Spirit stood in the center, his chest heaving, his eyes wide with fear. Alex reached out, their hand trembling as they stroked his neck. "It's okay," they whispered. "We're safe here." But the sound of engines grew louder, and Alex knew they weren't safe. Not yet. The hunters were close, too close. They could hear voices outside, shouting, and the sound of footsteps crunching against the gravel. "They're here," Maggie whispered, her voice tight with fear. Alex's mind raced. They couldn't let the hunters find Spirit. They couldn't let him be taken. But what could they do? They were trapped, with no way out. Then, an idea struck them. It was risky, but it was the only chance they had. "Maggie," Alex said, their voice low and urgent. "I need you to take Spirit and go. Get him out of here. I'll distract them." Maggie's eyes widened. "Alex, no. I can't leave you here." Alex shook their head, their jaw set with determination. "You have to. Spirit's the one they want. If they find him, it's over. But if they see me, they might not think to look for him." Maggie hesitated, her eyes filled with conflict. But she knew Alex was right. "Be careful," she said, her voice breaking. "Please." Alex nodded, their heart pounding as they watched Maggie lead Spirit out the back door of the barn. The Mustang hesitated, his eyes locking with Alex's, as if he understood what was happening. Alex gave him a small, reassuring smile. "Go," they whispered. "I'll be okay." As Maggie and Spirit disappeared into the woods, Alex took a deep breath and wheeled themselves toward the barn doors. They could hear the hunters outside, their voices growing louder. With a trembling hand, Alex pushed the doors open and rolled out into the open. The hunters froze, their eyes narrowing as they saw Alex. "Well, well," one of them said, a cruel smile spreading across his face. "What do we have here?" Alex straightened their back, their eyes blazing with defiance. "You're not taking him," they said, their voice strong and clear. "He's not yours." The hunter laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "You think you can stop us," he sneered. "You're just a kid in a wheelchair. What are you going to do?" Alex's jaw tightened, and they met the man's gaze head-on. "I'm not afraid of you," they said. "And neither is he." For a moment, the man hesitated, his eyes flickering with uncertainty. But then, with a muttered curse, he raised his rifle. Alex's heart raced, but they didn't flinch. They stood their ground, their eyes locked on the hunters. But before the man could take aim, a loud, defiant whinny echoed through the air. Alex's heart leapt as they saw Spirit charging toward them, his injured leg forgotten, his eyes blazing with fury. The hunters turned, their faces pale with shock, as the Mustang reared up, his hooves striking the air. In that moment, everything changed. The hunters, faced with the raw power and determination of the Mustang, turned and fled, their bravado crumbling in the face of Spirit's defiance. Alex watched in awe as the Mustang stood protectively by their side, his chest heaving, his eyes calm. As the sound of the engines faded into the distance, Alex reached out, their hand trembling as they stroked Spirit's neck. "You came back," they whispered, their voice breaking. "You came back for me." Spirit nuzzled Alex's hand, his breath warm against their skin, and in that moment, Alex knew they were no longer alone. They had found a friend, a partner, a kindred spirit. And together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead.